Sarah said, this is not actually my technical study, but I'll try not to make too many mistakes or propagate too many misconceptions. So I'm going to start with this quote from the 4th Earl of Chesterfield in the 18th century. It's about sex. The pleasure is momentary, the position ridiculous, and the expense damnable. And yet almost every animal does this. Sex has evolved several times. It is sometimes lost. There are lineages of animals and other organisms that have asexual reproduction, which on the surface seems to make a lot of sense. You don't have to go through all the difficult rituals, which I'm going to talk about. But for some reason, sex is the predominant method of reproduction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is. First of all, I do want to give credit where credit is due. I'm basing this talk largely on this book. You can see the screen there. Dr. Tatiana's Sex Advice to All Creation by Olivia Judson. It's a fantastic read, and if you like any of this stuff that I'm talking about, you should definitely check it out. I'll come back to that at the end. So I'm going to start with the stick insects. They look kind of humble, but actually that guy sitting on the back there is a champion. He is a champion of endurance. Now, if a human lasts 10 minutes, that's not too bad. That's might even be good. 10 hours would be quite something. This guy doesn't do 10 hours. Doesn't do 10 days. He does 10 weeks. These guys continuously mate for 10 weeks, which is kind of crazy. But it would be very easy for me to stand up here and tell you a bunch of crazy things that happen with sex in nature, because there are a lot, and I'm going to tell you a lot. But I want to also take a moment to ask why. Why is he mating for 10 weeks? And why does she tolerate that also? So another example, also insects. These two are not mating, actually. He is going along for a ride. They mated a few days before, and he wants to make sure that he's the only one. And so, he's going to hang out there. He's going to go along for the ride. He actually does have to be on his guard, because if another male comes along and thinks she's sexy, he might try to knock him off. And if the male on top gets knocked off, then he's going to lose his girl. And it's not a one-way thing. The girl is definitely interested in other men. And that's really the question of why that applies both to the stick insect and here, because this flies in the face of a concept which is kind of assumed in a lot of cases, that in nature, the females are the ones who choose and the males are the ones who don't really care that much what they say. And yet mate guarding, this is called mate guarding, and it's a pretty common behavior. A lot of males are going to, there's a squirrel that follows the female everywhere after mating. He doesn't help her raise the children or anything. He just follows her everywhere. It's a common behavior. And the reason for that is this principle. It's called Batemans' principle, that men are cads, women are saints. It's not quite true. So it makes sense on the surface, actually. Eggs cost more than sperm, and childcare especially costs a lot. This is cost in evolutionary terms, so it's time, energy, resources. You know, it's easy for a male in most species to just go around and give sperm to everyone. They're cheap. And then also for the female, there might be some reasons that she doesn't want to mate too many times, especially if it takes a long time. They might get eaten in the act. There are venereal diseases in most species. So it would make sense if the female doesn't really want to mate too many times. But the Bateman's principle has one fundamental flaw. It's wrong. It just doesn't describe nature. Bateman, he observed Drosophila melanogaster, which is important because actually there are a lot of other species in that genus where he would not have come to the same conclusion. Drosophila ivy, they like to start every day with a few rounds of sex with some strangers. That's their daily ritual. Drosophila melanogaster, the females only like to do it about once per week, although that's partly due to a love potion that the males give her, which make her not interested in sex for about a week. Anyway, even in Drosophila melanogaster, it's not the most solid principle. But the fact is, in most species, it's completely wrong. In rabbits, these guys look cute, don't they? You don't know who she's going to be with tomorrow. The female rabbits that have more partners have more offspring. The female sand lizards that have more partners have more offspring. The female slippery dicks with more partners have more offspring. It's these guys and these girls in the front who are the slippery dicks. I don't know what the ones in the back are. So one lesson we can learn from that is the dangers of using model organisms, because Drosophila melanogaster actually is, of course, it's a very useful model organism, but in this case, it misled Bateman. So when we really think about it, what reason would there be for females to be chased? Receiving a sperm doesn't really cost anything, except if you take a long time, it's a small cost, but mainly, if a lot of males mate with a female, that's more sperm for her to choose from. Females who get around, they tend to have more children, healthier children, and more diverse offspring. These are all good things in evolutionary terms. And then that's just the beginning. There are many other reasons to be rowdy, and I'm just going to go through a few of them. So one case is if Bateman's roles are reversed. This is pretty basic. If sex is more, or reproduction is more costly to the male than to the female, then the male is the one who's choosy, and the female is the one who shows up. You see these birds right here? It looks kind of familiar. You've got the colorful ones trying to woo the drab-colored one. The guy on the right is the male, and the two who are competing are the females. Because after fertilization, the female lays the egg, and the male takes care of it. And then the females are ready to go around and lay eggs for more men. So that's a basic way that females are going to be more loose. Another one, a similar example actually, jacanas, the males are also the moms there, and the females have harems, where the biggest, the sexiest females attract all the males, and they provide eggs for all the males. And then there's another advantage. If a female has a lot of beaux, a lot of dudes, they might want to look out for her. If a female red-winged blackbird, this is actually a bird it comes from near where I'm from. If a female is attacked, then she'll let out a scream, and all the males who have ever mated with her are going to come to her defense because she might have their children, and they need to protect her. That comes at a cost, though, because these are socially monogamous. Not sexually monogamous, but socially monogamous, and so if her main boy discovers that she's been cheating, he might just leave the nest, and that's a big cost to her. So they've got this balance between trying to diversify and trying to be faithful. So another reason that animals would want to sleep around, females or males, is diversity. Now this is really fundamentally the whole reason for sex, because asexual reproduction is a lot more efficient and easier, but all the children are genetically identical. So you can encourage this diversity by having a diversity of partners. But then there's another relatively new idea, which is just starting to be studied, but genetic compatibility. This has to do with the immune system, and it's a problem in a lot of species that some parents cannot have children, and that includes humans. I'm going to sidetrack for a moment. The sweaty t-shirt experiment is kind of fascinating. What you do is you take men, human men, have them wear a t-shirt for 2 days, and then put them in plastic bags and give females the opportunity to smell all these sweaty t-shirts and ask them which one of these is sexiest. And it turns out that correlates very well with the males that they are genetically compatible with. So, yeah, you can take from that what you will. Although you don't think about it too hard, because women on the pill actually get it backwards. So, one more reason that I'm going to talk about that a female might want to have a number of mates is she gets paid for it. Sex for food is a very common exchange, and many species, the males bring food to the female in exchange for sex. But warning to you males, if you buy sex, it won't buy you love. This is pretty much universally, a species where the males pay for sex, they don't pair up. It's just a one-night thing. And so the girls who are clever, who are successful, are going to mate with as many males as they can. They get to eat like queens. They get to have a lot of resources to spend on their children, and then they will often only select the sperm of the males that really impressed them. And the male doesn't know when he gives the food whether his sperm will be used. So this brings me to my next theme. All is fair in love and war. And it's sometimes hard to tell the difference. Can you guess what that's a picture of? That's a penis. The battle of the sexes is often quite a literal thing. Males and females have conflicting interests, and a mating strategy that is beneficial to one sex may be not beneficial or detrimental to the other sex. But if it is beneficial to one sex, it will be passed along. That's how evolution works. So when you have these females mating with many males, it leads to one of the major fronts in the battle of the sexes, which is sperm competition. I have a note here. Monogamous species are very rare. In nearly all species, there's some degree of competition, often sperm competition, which is which sperm are successful at fertilizing the eggs. Now there's some simple ways to do this. If a sperm is healthier, it'll probably swim faster, it might survive the female's defenses better. Now the female reproductive tract is usually a very hostile place for sperm. It's kind of a mystery why that is, but it's just massacre as soon as the sperm enter the female reproductive tract in most species, including humans. So then also, if sperm are more numerous, that is obviously an advantage. In more tickets in the lottery, you have a better chance. This is highly correlated with the degree of polygamy in a species. The champions are splendid fairy wrens. They're fantastically unfaithful, even though they live in pairs, and they produce like 20 times as many sperm as humans, even though they're smaller than a fist. So some other things that will make sperm more successful, aside from being healthier and more numerous, are if they're bigger. One example is another Drosophila species, Drosophila bifurca. They are 3 millimeters long, but their sperm are 58 millimeters long. It's 20 times their body length. It takes 3 weeks to make a single sperm. That's quite the contrast from the splendid fairy wren I was just talking about, which produces 8 billion several times a day, because they fly off for food all the time and have a little tryst on the side while they're looking for food. So this is a very common one, and no one really knows why. Tandem sperm. You have 2 sperms swimming along together. It's evolved independently in opossums, water beetles, millipedes, firebrats, and sea snails. A lot of sperm also have hooks on the end. Koalas, rodents, and crickets have this, among others. Then sperm come in all sorts of varieties of shapes. There are discs, there are corkscrews, and there are amoeboid sperm, which they crawl along, and they do race. The bigger ones win the race. And then there are spermatophores, and this is also a common strategy, which is a whole packet of sperm which is placed inside of the female reproductive tract, and then it explodes sperm. The giant octopus has a meter-long one with 10 billion sperm in it, which I guess it does its job pretty well. So I told you I was going to tell you reasons. Actually, for the sperm thing, I can't tell you reasons for most of it because it's mostly unknown. It's kind of hard to get funding while there's cancer in the world for why are these sperm corkscrew shaped. But the reason doesn't make that much difference, actually. What's important in terms of evolution is simply that some sperm are more successful. Doesn't matter how they do it, as long as something is heritable that makes the sperm more successful, that trait will be passed along. That's the fundamental basis of evolution by natural selection. And so, for whatever reason, these sperm work well. Another tool, the most important tool in sperm competition is, can you guess? Penises. So, a penis is an organ to deliver sperm. That's fundamentally what it is, but they can do a lot of other things. They can be used to grab things. This is kind of an odd example, but dolphins have hooks on the end, and they will feel their environment and sometimes mate with their environment for reasons that still defy our knowledge. They can be used to clean the female. This is very common. So damselflies, they're very pretty insects. They're very cute when they mate because look, they make a heart. Do you make a heart when you mate? That's the penis. So this is one of the fanciest penises around. So it's got, you can see the scoop shape. That's for removing rival sperm. That literally is what it does. The horns do something that I don't really know. They've got, some species have spines on the side which also assist in the sperm removal. They've got an inflatable bulb that literally fills with air to pull the sperm out. And this is just one example. These are other damselfly, shapes of other damselfly penis. This is a different species, the bean weevil. And yes, those are sharp and hard. Spines are pretty common on penises. Actually, this is a, hang on. This is a cat penis, in case you didn't know. They've got it. Regular domestic cat. So this does, at least the bean weevil ones, do damage the female. It causes scarring, but that scarring is correlated with the male having more offspring. The male who damages the female more has more offspring. But correlation is not causation. You know that. It may be that the damage actually increases the male's reproductive success directly, because it can condition the female, just as Tama was talking about. She learns, that was not fun. I don't want to do that again. And then it will reduce future mating, reduce sperm competition. Another possibility is that it makes her less sexually functional, which is brutal, but nature is brutal. But also, both the damage and the amount of cleaning are correlated with the length of the spines. So it could simply be that the spines are only there for cleaning. So I'm running a little long, so I'll speed up a little bit. So the Argonaut octopus, that's the female. The male is much, much smaller, and he's got an interesting strategy. The thing on the right there is, it was thought for a long time that it was a parasitic worm on the females. It's actually a detachable penis that lives up an independent life inside of her. He detaches it. And it was very confusing for a long time because this parasitic worm looked so much like the female. It had like suckers on the tentacle, or on the worm, and everything. They can also be used for defense. This is a scorpion fly. It's called a scorpion fly because it looks like it has a scorpion stinger, but it's not a stinger. They have an interesting way of bringing food to the female. It's very sexy for the females if this food was stolen from a spider web, because that's a dangerous thing to do. So they actually go steal a fly from a spider, and if the spider gets upset about this, they hit him over the head with So they can be used for defense. They can be used to find mates. Barnacles are champion of a different sort. They have the largest penis length to body length ratio. It's 10 times the length of their body because they can't move. The barnacles are things that attach to rocks, and they can't move. So then they just they reach this arm out and mate with everything that they can. This one's not nice. They can be used to stab. Some ancestor to the bedbug discovered that a way to get around all of the female's defenses against mating is to just inject the sperm directly into her abdomen. Because insects have an open circulatory system, so as long as it gets inside, it'll get to the ovaries. So this is called traumatic insemination, and it is traumatic. It's evolved numerous times because it is a way for males to outcompete each other, but it is bad for the female, and they will usually die, at least die sooner from the wounds. But again, in the battle of the sexes, it doesn't have to be good for the other sex, it just has to be good for you. And if a female is dying, she will put all of her resources into making more eggs because that's her last chance to reproduce. And so if you stab her, she will make more babies for you. If you're a bad So another thing that a few male genitals do is explode. Now I'm going to talk about just one of these. This is a pretty famous poem by T.S. Eliot. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. For a male bee, it's the opposite. The world for a male bee ends with a bang, not a whimper. That's a bang in both senses. Because they literally rupture. They explode. So a female bee, the only female bees that can reproduce are the queens. These are rare, and they can only mate while they're flying from their birth home to their new home. So it's very, 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 very rare for a male bee to ever have a chance to mate. And if he does, he's not going to have another chance. So he might as well go all for it. And so he ejects sperm with such force it goes very deep inside her. And he leaves his penis in her because that makes it harder for future males to mate. It's not very successful. She still usually has 10 to 20 partners, but maybe some of them have a little more difficulty. So yeah, one more. Pleasure. That's a difficult thing to really quantify, but it's pretty clear that in humans, the bonding aspect of sex is more than simply fertilization. And the penis is an important tool in the pleasure of sex. So I'm going to skip this one because I'm running pretty long. But so I've been talking mainly about males because honestly I was going to talk about some other things, but there's so much to talk about with these male tools. I'm just going to briefly talk about childcare. Yeah. So the concept that I really want to convey with a lot of this is that evolution doesn't have a direction. The term is teleology. There is no intention. It doesn't look forward and try to create a successful species. Simply whatever happens continues. Whatever is heritable and produces viable offspring continues. What's good for males is passed along. What's good for females is passed along. The result is an arms race. And I don't have time to talk about the counter strategies that females have for all of these awful. I'm going to move on to convergent evolution. So these penises have evolved many times. It's not something that arose just once. And childcare is another thing which has evolved a lot of times and in some kind of terrifying way. So first of all, there's the adorable marsupials. Kangaroos are well known for carrying around their babies. Another one that's a little less cute, but another strategy is the gastric brooding frog. Gastric, as you may know, means stomach. These incubate their young in the stomach. Actually, no, they don't. They're extinct. They went extinct in the 80s, and they're currently the subject of a resurrection effort. They're going to try to bring these guys back. So this spider, the babies are born, and then they eat the mother, which is a very effective way of helping them grow big very quickly. I hope she doesn't mind. The Surinam toad is this fat thing. The mother takes good care of the babies on her back. Yes, they're growing under the skin, and when it's time, do I have an animation? Yeah, they come out like zombies. I hope no one has any phobias. So, slightly less repulsive, actually quite adorable. If you don't mind bats, I think this one's pretty cute. These dyak fruit bats are one of the few mammals known that have male lactation, which is kind of mysterious why more male mammals don't lactate, especially the ones where the males collaborate in raising the offspring, but these guys do. And now, I was going to talk about, like I said, some other things, and I was going to transition with kangaroos, and I've got to leave it, but I want to keep the transition simply because. This guy is telling the other guy, hey, you want to fight? You really want to mess with me? Look at this, look at this. You don't want to mess with this. So, I'm just going to leave that flag while I take questions. So again, if you are interested in this stuff and want to learn more, I covered a fraction of the topics that are covered in this book. So I highly recommend it.
Do we have more than 100 questions? Who starts?
I can't actually see anything. So
yeah, me neither. 1 second. No questions?
Yeah.
Penis, isn't it?
Thank you. Very interesting. My question would be, all this fascinating information you've gathered together, how does it now relate to your understanding of sex today?
Except for the gastric brooding frog, these are all things that happen today. If you mean humans, that's an interesting thing. It's kind of a dangerous thing to draw parallels between these things and humans because there's a lot of interpretation and a lot of ways that you can interpret it that aren't necessarily accurate. I'm not going to say anything on that topic because some of it might actually be true, but very controversial. So I'll leave that to your imagination. If you ask me something specific, maybe I'll give you a real answer.
Anyone else? Is there? Do I see a hand? No? No? Oh, Vasily, of course.
Why does sex exist?
Okay. I have a slide for that. Actually, no, I don't have a slide for that. I have a slide asking the mystery of that. So this is a comparison of asexual versus sexual reproduction. If you look at it, one parent can produce 4 offspring. Then if you have asexual reproduction, after 2 generations, you're going to have 16 offspring. And with sexual reproduction, only the female is producing the babies, and so you end up with half as many offspring. It's strange. One of the leading hypotheses for why this exists, surely there are many factors influencing it, but immune system needs to be ever-changing, rapidly evolving to the ever-changing world of pathogens. And so a species that does not genetically change very quickly or is limited simply to the mutation rate rather than the shuffling of genes that accompanies sex is going to be much more vulnerable to infection. There's a concept called the Red Queen effect. It's named after a Lewis Carroll thing where the Red Queen says to Alice, you need to run just to stay still. There's an arms race not just intraspecies, but between species. There are constantly predator, prey, or other species with the same food source. There's always an arms race with how they inhibit or attack each other. And so especially chemically, but also physically, the mixing that occurs during sex is able to vastly improve the rate of adaptation with a bit less risk than you get with the mutations in asexual reproduction.
Yeah, but why can't there be two very similar sexes and just exchange genetic material?
I'm glad you asked me that. Actually, that does occur in some cases. It's called isogamy or isogamy. I don't know how to pronounce it. You can have the fundamental difference between males and females is the size of the gametes. Female seahorses have penises that deliver eggs because the males are the ones who raise the offspring. It's nothing except the size of the gametes, and an organism has a choice. It can either focus on number of gametes or the rate of success of the gametes. Now, the organisms that do have equal size, equal characteristic gametes, it happens, but it's an unstable equilibrium because as soon as one starts cheating, you have two different zygotes. Well, hang on, gametes that meet each other and make a child. If one of them is a little smaller, it'll still make a child. And so there's an evolutionary drive to just get smaller and smaller and smaller. But then if everyone gets smaller, then the cell won't have enough resources to really get going. So there's also an advantage to making the gamete bigger and bigger and bigger so that it has a really high rate of producing successful offspring. And so the isogamy is an unstable equilibrium that usually splits into large eggs and small sperm.
Right, we gotta move on. Guys, you have a 15-minute break to ask all the questions that you want, Steve. And after that, we'll be back to our second two speakers. Thank you very much.